Krishna permits my life energy to focus a little bit, it's been an interesting day today and yesterday too. But I'd like to make a little summary of what we have discussed so far during this weekend or during my visit here on a topic called respect. The background of the topic is this presentation is part of a Vaishnava etiquette seminar, a little mini seminar on different components that make proper behavior and speech in the association of devotees. It's a nice topic. It's a nice asset to carry. And hopefully some of you will get something from this discussion. Because at least the topic, specifically the topic of respect, has to do with the fact, common sense, without respect, how do you have a proper relationship with anyone? It's dysfunctional at best, or dispute, not really a relationship. So, say it the other way. When there's proper respect between one individual and another individual, it makes for wholesome, beneficial exchanges between the two individuals. And then they can grow spiritually and emotionally and every other way together. So that's what we want. And the focus for this discussion on respect goes to a discussion between Devahuti and her son Kapila Dev. The background is Devahuti, it's very, very early in creation. There's the first of the 14 Manus is Swayambhuva Manu. And in each Daya Brahma, there's 14 Manus, and he's number one, Swayambhuva Manu. Swayambhuva Manu has 3 daughters. In the course of the first 7 cantos of the Bhagavatam, we hear more about the other 2 daughters, but the first of the 3, is Devahuti. Devahuti, Prasuti, and Akuti. Swayambhuva Manu's daughters. And Devahuti had a desire to marry Kardama Muni. Kardama Muni was one of the direct sons of Lord Brahma, and a great sage and super consciousness person, very detached from the world. He wasn't so much inclined to become a householder, but she was inclined to have him as her husband, and because it was ordained that it would happen like that, he agreed on a condition. One condition. When there's a son that's of age to maintain you, I'm going to return back to the forest. So, because of his mystic power, they had this big palace. He built by his mystic power, a big palace, and they had palace life together, the daughter of Swayambhuva Manu. And then when Kapila was born, Kapila is an incarnation of the personality of Godhead, he went back to the forest. And, one of the opulences, because he's the personality of Godhead, he's an avatar of Vishnu. We'll hear how he speaks. I'm going to read some verses from Canto 3, Chapter 29, where he's speaking about devotional service. And he's speaking in the first person singular as he has his deity form on the altar, and then persons come before the deity form on the altar, but they may see the deity form on the altar and respect and worship the deity on the altar, but then the form of the Supreme Lord that's within the heart of every living entity is Paramatma. If that living entity is not respected or disrespected, because not respecting is a kind of disrespect. Not acknowledging is a kind of disrespect. mild, but it's a kind of disrespect. And it's an offense. So we don't offend the deity, we also don't offend the super soul within the heart of living entities. So therefore we have to respect the living entity because within their heart is the deity, or the form of the Lord. So that's what he's going to be, we'll be hearing. He's explaining to his mother, on the one hand, in the earlier verses, we'll see the verse directly, pure devotional service. These are the characteristics of pure devotional service. And there's devotional service that's not pure. It's mixed. Devotional service is pure, but our experience of bhakti may be not getting the full force of bhakti. The power of bhakti may not be experienced, the fullness of the power of bhakti may not be experienced by us if there's something blocking it that's also powerful. Like clouds in the sky can block the light of the sun. The sun is still shining, but our experience of that sunshine may be diminished by the clouds in the sky. Similarly, bhakti is all pure, as Krishna is all pure. But our experience may be less than the fullness of that purifying effect of bhakti. And the obstacle is, you can say, by metaphor, is the clouds in the sky. I'm going to read the verses. There's nice purports, and we'll discuss a little bit, but let's start with the verses. So I'm going to read from, as you see on the screen here, Canto 3, Chapter 29, starting with verse 21. Just the verse. I am present in every living entity as the super soul. He's speaking to his mother. If someone neglects or disregards that super soul everywhere and engages himself in the worship of the deity in the temple, that is simply imitation. Imitation. What's his word? Vidambanam. Vidambanam. Next verse. One who worships the deity of Godhead in temples, but does not know that the Supreme Lord, as Paramatma, is situated in every living entity's heart, must be in ignorance, and is compared to one who offers oblations into ashes. We just had a fire yajna, but the ghee goes into the fire, not into the ashes. The third verse. Performing his prescribed duties, one should worship the deity of the Supreme Personality of Godhead until one realizes my presence in his own heart and in the hearts of other living entities as well. So it's not to discourage deity worship, but deity worship that's done again and again and again with sincerity and effectiveness, so that one can realize the Supreme Lord within. Though I skipped a verse, text 24. My dear mother, even if he worships with proper rituals and paraphernalia, a person, this is deity worship, a person who is ignorant of my presence in all living entities never pleases me by worship of my deities in the temple. So like 3 times. Now he doesn't, one may think in reading what Kapila has said, well, I'm an imitation person and I'm putting fire, ghee into ashes, and so better not worship the deity. No, worship the deity, but perform your prescribed duties in such a way, along with the worship of the deity, in such a way that you become sufficiently purified, you can realize the deity that's in your heart and the deity that's in the heart of others. living entities are superior to inanimate objects, O Blessed Mother, and among them, living entities who display life symptoms are better. Animals with developed consciousness are better than them, and better still are those who have developed sense perceptions. So he's going through gradations of consciousness of living entities, and he's going to get once again to the stage of pure consciousness, or pure Krishna consciousness, or pure bhakti. So here's the description of pure devotional service found earlier in this chapter. I'm going to read the verse. Whoops. 2 slides. Can you move the 2 slides? Or do I have to do it myself? There we go. Okay. The manifestation of unadulterated devotional service is exhibited when one's mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everyone's heart. Just as the water of the Ganges flows naturally down towards the ocean, such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material condition, flows towards the Supreme Lord. This reminds me, probably reminds you, some of you, of Queen Kunti's prayers. Yes? Canto 1, Chapter 8, Queen Kunti makes prayers to Krishna because Krishna is going to depart Hastinapur and head back for Dwarka. So she comes straight up to his chariot, and he doesn't say don't go, but she's saying don't go. And one of the things she says is, let my mind forever flow like the rivers flow towards the sea, like the Ganges flows forever towards the sea. Let my mind flow forever towards you. So that's the outcome of one who has properly heard. The one who has properly heard is like the attraction of the river to the sea. Like the force of gravity, water flows down, doesn't flow up. So the mind goes to Krishna, the topics of Krishna, by just hearing the topics of Krishna. Same as what we find in earlier parts of Canto 1 Bhagavatam. Shrinvata Swakata Krishna, Punya Shravana Kirtana, Ridyan Staksoha Bhadrani, Vidhonoti Saritsatam. The abhadras, or inauspicious things, are cleansed away, like if there's debris and there's a river Ganges is flowing, the debris gets carried away. It doesn't stop the flow of the Ganges. The flow of the Ganges removes the impurities. So the abhadras, there's abhadra and there's bhadra, and there's subhadra. Very auspicious, there she is, Subhadra. And then there's that, so Bhadra is auspicious and Abhadra is inauspicious. So all the things that are inauspicious within the heart are cleansed by hearing. That's what is being said here. The position of pure devotional service is a symptom, a lakshana, characteristic is one who hears, the mind just goes, like the river flowing toward the sea, inexorably. That's pure devotional service, uninterrupted by any material condition. There's nothing material that can start bhakti, nothing material that can stop bhakti. Nothing material can stop bhakti. There's no material obstacle that interrupts pure devotional service. The mind just goes to Krishna, like the Ganges flowing to the sea. We spent some time during this weekend discussing Priti Sandarbha. There's some newer people here, I imagine. So let me tell you a little bit about Jiva Goswami, the author of Priti Sandarbha. Now, many of you know, but it's nice to hear again if you already know. there's Lord Chaitanya, he's on our altar. Most ISKCON temples have Gaurnitai deities on their altar. So the Gora is Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya had principal associates, 6 of whom resided in Vrindavan, so they're known as 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. One of those 6 is Jiva, the youngest. And Jiva was such a lover of Srimad Bhagavatam that he wrote 4 commentaries on the Bhagavatam. Haribol for sure. So, one of those was like what Prabhupada did, verse by verse throughout the whole Bhagavatam. Krama Sandarbha. And then another was topic by topic. 6 topics, and then subtopics of those 6 topics. Bhakti Sandarbha, Bhagavat Sandarbha, Krishna Sandarbha, Tattva Sandarbha, Priti Sandarbha, Paramatma Sandarbha, that's 6. And, it sits on your shelf like this. It's really voluminous. In Priti Sandarbha, that's number 6. And there's a statement in Priti Sandarbha that says, the goal of all human endeavors is to become happy. That's pretty easy. This is the beginning of the analysis. The goal, look at this, it works. This is the first verse of the entire book. The goal of the human being is attaining happiness and destroying suffering. Complete happiness and destruction of suffering is attained only by priti for the Lord. Priti is love. Priti is a very almost one-to-one exchange is prema, love for Krishna, prema bhakti. Priti. The only way to do these 2 things that all people want is by attaining that stage. Now, in these verses that we read, I just read the verse, several verses. Then there's commentary on those verses by 2 celebrated commentaries. One is Jiva Goswami, and the other is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Those of you who have been around for a while, you know these 2 names. So both those 2 commentators say that obstacle that prevents one from seeing the personality of Godhead within the heart of other living entities, the root of it is envy. And there's a detailed explanation. That's what we spent some time discussing. So here's a nice story, a famous Braja story about the beginning traces of envy called avagya. Gya means to know, and avagya is one who looks down on others. Ava, like in avatar, means moving downward. Avatar. So avagya is one who I think I might feel myself to be up here and others are down there. A haughty is not like necessarily nasty, just a little pride in there in the heart somewhere. This abhadra, pride thing. So there's a nice Vraja story that helps us understand what this is. The story goes like this. There was a Brahmana who lived in Bengal, and he was wealthy and learned, and he was a gifted Brahmana, and he also felt highly of himself because of that. A little bit of this avagya tendency, little pride in his heart. So when he became mature man, he left everything with his family members and went to Vrindavan. And when he went to Vrindavan, he was in search of a guru, and he came across a sadhu in Vrindavan. and he had particular affinity for the sadhu, so he was requesting the sadhu to give him diksha. And the sadhu kept putting him off and putting him off, and he didn't say no, but he didn't say yes either. So after some time, the sadhu said, this is a famous Braja story, the sadhu said, in 1 week's time, I'll give you diksha, provided you can bring before me someone who is lesser than you. He was testing him. So he said, no problem. So he right away, he went to the Bungi community, the street sweeper people. But he then thought a little more deeply, this Bungi, the street sweeper, he's always with the dust of Vrindavan. His whole life is becoming purified by Braj Raj. So he's a very elevated person. And so after saying no to the Bungi, he said, maybe a cow. But then when he thought about the cow, he said that the cow is a creature that simply gives milk. She just does service to others and eats grass. And I'm not giving service to others all the time like a cow gives service to others, so she's above me. So then he thought, maybe a dog. But then, as he was thinking more about the qualities of a dog is known to be very faithful. And I'm not like that. So he's not lower than me. So then he thought, maybe I can bring to the sadhu some of my stool. That's definitely lower. But then he thought more about that. He said, I've just been eating prasadam. And so it's sacred. It's the result of eating sacred prasadam. And then you see in the drawing there's a worm. He said, there's a worm in the stool. So maybe I'll bring the worm to the sadhu and he'll give me diksha. But then he was thinking about the worm, and the worm takes the stool and transforms it into something that's like fertilizer. You know, and I'm this worm-like person living in a stool-like existence, and I don't produce something useful to everybody, fertilizer. So he came back to the Guru and said, I couldn't find anybody lower than me. The Guru said, very good, I'll give you diksha. The message being that that's a little story. There's other nicer stories, not nicer, but nice stories, where humility means then one can look up to others rather than envying others. We'll do it the other way. Supposing I'm a proud person, I don't like looking up to other people. Prabhupada would speak, he spoke, I don't know, 100 times about, there was a commentator on the Bhagavad Gita, a professor and a politician, who said when his comment, when 866 Bhagavad Gita, Sarvadharmam parijajya mamekam sharanam braja, the commentator says, Krishna's too much. He's asking us to surrender to him. So, manmana, bhavamadbhakto, badbadada, you don't think of Krishna, you think of the unborn within, the unborn Brahman within every living entity. Don't surrender to Krishna, surrender to the unborn within Krishna. So where's that coming from? That's not what Krishna says. So it's coming from a place of envy. Because he who is actually asking, because he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead, declared by himself in Bhagavad Gita and declared by Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita, he's saying no. Why? Envy of he who is actually in the superior position. Therefore, we don't take shelter and surrender and respect, back to the theme of respect. exhibit respect. We show respect. We render service to someone who's in a superior position. It can be something very simple, but you show respect and do some little service, whatever that capacity you have to do. And the failure to do so is a type of disrespect. So in order to get back to Lord Kapila Dev's teachings, to get to the point where I see the deity on the altar and the form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is within the heart as non-different. The Paramatma feature and the deity feature are one and the same entity. Of course, different manifestations, but the same entity. And that's the purpose of deity worship, according to Kapila. Continue your deity worship until you can have that realization that the deity is in your heart. Krishna is in your heart. And you can see the deity or the Krishna is within the heart of others. And then there's respect, as there's respect for the deity. You know, people come from long distances in India and, here. Come sometime when it's a little quieter and watch what happens. People come with their family, with their kids and their this and that. They come before the deity, they offer something in the hundi box or some gift, some flowers, say some prayers, pay obeisances, and they leave. Because the deity is everything. It's, what I'm talking about, because we see it. But that's not everything. That's the teaching of 3rd Canto, Chapter 29. We need to come to another position. Here's another nice example. Hopefully we'll be able to see it on the screen. Shravan Kumar. Who is Shravan Kumar? You've heard of Shravan Kumar. This is from Ramayana. This is a little comic illustration, but King Dasarath had a mystic ability. That is, he could shoot arrows at a target without seeing the target, just by hearing the sound. So one time he was in the forest hunting, and while resting under a tree, he heard the sound of someone drinking water. And he thought that someone was an animal. So he shot an arrow in the direction of where the sound was coming from. But it wasn't an animal. That's what he's thinking. Whoops, it went away. What happened? In the upper left corner, he thinks it's a deer. But when he shot the arrow, it wasn't the deer at all. It was Shravan Kumar. And Shravan Kumar, he heard a human cry, so he ran quickly to where the arrow hit, where the sound had come from, and it was a boy, mortally wounded. And the young boy said to King Dasarath, "Please take care of my old and blind parents. I came to bring them water, and they depend on me as their only support." You know the story, because it's a nice standard Ramayana story. So the king brought the boy in his arms to the blind and invalid parents. And when they heard the sound, because they're blind, they thought it was their son came back. But then Dasarath placed the boy on the father's lap and explained what happened. The father was very sad. He lamented like anything, and he cursed Dasarath. "As I die from separation from my son, you too will die in the same way." then there's some further detail. The father began to consider, why did this happen? This is discussed again, Jiva Goswami in Bhakti Sandarbha. Remember Preeti Sandarbha? That's one of the 6 Sandarbhas is Bhakti Sandarbha. So he discusses the thoughts of the thoughts of the father. The father was wanting to understand, what Vedic principle did I violate? And he considers, perhaps I once saw the deity of the Lord and thought it was of stone, considering it merely a well-decorated stone. That's an offense. So maybe that was the offense. I just saw the deity form. Or perhaps I once saw a Vaishnava, and the Vaishnava was decorated with tilak and the signs of a Vaishnava. But I didn't pay obeisances in my mind and respect him properly, which is an offense. Clear? You see the connection between Ramayana and Kapila Dev's teachings? Worship the deity, not thinking the deity is stone, worshiping the deity, but here comes a Vaishnava, and I don't respect the Vaishnava, has the same as the deity within their heart. And if neglecting to properly respect, that's an offense. So we need to properly respect. The theme of this seminar on Vaishnava etiquette is the importance of respect and the consequence if there's neglect of respect. And there's other sources where we spend some time discussing, and I'm just going to touch on a very important one. This is from the Artha Shastra of Chanakya Pandit. As you know, there's these Purusharthas, Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. Everyone knows that one. Dharma. And many people are engaged in Dharma because they want Artha. They want prosperity. I do good things because I know there's going to be fruits of those good things, and I'll get good fruits by doing good things. So I'm going to do lots of good things as much as possible and avoid the bad things as much as possible because I want to prosper. Artha. And then when people get Artha or prosperity or wealth, commonly, the next one, Kama, sense gratification. You have wealth, you got stuff. You have stuff, you can enjoy your senses. Om Jai Jagadisha Hare. And then if one recognizes that's not really bringing satisfaction, one may then go to the next stage, moksha. Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So Artha Shastra is texts that explain to people how to get what you want. You know, like Karma Kanda rituals found in the Vedas. You do this ritual to get that result. You chant these mantras and worship that deva or devi, and you have good health or good wife or prosperity or longevity or something or something. Artha Shastra. So in Chanakya Pandit's writings, he has a whole section that discusses exactly that. If you want to prosper, then there's some principles that you must follow. And this diagram shows in it what happened. It disappeared. I guess it didn't show up. Well, I'll tell you what my computer shows. tell you what my computer shows. It shows a tree, and there's. It's not going to show up because it's not on your. Somehow it didn't make it onto your flash drive. So there's a tree, and there's 4 parts. There's the root, there's the trunk, there's the branches, and there's the fruit at the top, fruit. So those that want prosperity, artha, what's the fruit that they want? Well, they want to satisfy their senses. But there's a better fruit than satisfying one's senses. What's the better fruit? It's spiritual knowledge and ultimate success through spiritual knowledge. So according to Chanakya Pandit, the root is service to superiors. Because in service to superiors, it starts to manifest the trunk, or humility. Because without you could say which comes first, the humility or the service. But you practice. I'm going to tell a little story. Once upon a time, I was a college kid. A few years ago, like 57 years ago, I was a college kid. And when I finished my senior year of undergraduate study, heading for medical school, but I took a detour and decided to become a Hare Krishna devotee. There's a long story, but so the place that I wanted to make as the ashram that where I was going to start was in Boston. It was in Boston because this is anecdotal, but in Boston because at that time there was no BBT. It was just ISKCON Press, because there was only one entity, ISKCON. So there was a large building, rented building, and on the upper floors, that's where the press was. You know, the artists and the transcribers and the persons that produced Prabhupada's books. There's all these very powerful, to me, at least senior devotees. And they were really nice devotees and really gifted. They gave great classes and wonderful kirtan, and I really liked the place. I visited the place during my undergraduate days, and I really liked it so much. That was it, Boston. So I got in my little Volkswagen Bug, because I had a car, and drove all the way from upstate New York to Boston in one drive. And when I got there, it was on a Sunday, and I was exhausted and hungry. But they recognized me from a previous visit, and they said, "Hey, can you help out? We need somebody to wash pots." I didn't say, "Wait a minute, I'm a new guy, and I drove all the way from upstate New York, and I'm really hungry. Can I take prasadam first?" I didn't do that. I just washed pots. And then I got pats on the back and said, "Oh, you're doing such a nice job. Would you like to wash pots tomorrow?" I'm a rookie, and I'm just, you say yes, just things like that, right? So I washed pots for a month. Straight from, on my way to medical school to wash pots. And while I was standing there washing pots, it was the place where the pot sink was on the way out the door. There, all the devotees every day, 7 days of the week, went out on Harinam. And I'm this, youngster, and I want to go on Harinam, but I got to wash pots. Because it was just, right around the same time. The Raj Bhog offering had been made, and there's all these kitchen pots. So people patted me on the back and said, "Prabhupada said, when you clean the pots, you're cleansing your heart." I didn't say it, but I was thinking, "Oh yeah, there's a sink right next to me." I didn't say it though. And then some time passed. I'm still, for the first month washing pots, and then somebody said, Prabhupada said you should wash the pot so nicely that you can see your face in the bottom of the pot. Reflection, so in those days, temples were poor, so they bought used pots. So the pots were all crunky and caked black on the bottom, and bent, not even flat. They were bent. So there I was, trying to surrender to what Prabhupada said. And first it was rah, rah, rah. But eventually I got into it. It's just like, this is what Prabhupada said, so let me do it. Let me surrender. And sure enough, in 1 month, the bottom, the part where the flame goes, you could see your face and reflection in the bottom of the pot. And then someone tapped me on the shoulder, said, hey, we have another pot washer. Would you like to come with us on Sankirtan? And I thought, Krishna is very tricky. Because he wanted to teach me humility. And it worked. And it's a good quality, because when you have humility, then you can surrender. Say it negatively. If you don't have humility, how can you surrender? You're not going to surrender. You're going to compete. Or place yourself above that person who is saying, surrender to me. At least equal, but not surrender. So humility is imperative. So that's the trunk of the tree. Now, there's roots beneath the trunk of the tree. According to Chanakya Pandit, where does humility come from? It comes from service to your superiors. Then you have a tree trunk. It grows from service to superiors. And then comes further up the tree, when the tree becomes more mature, there's branches. And the branches, where there's service to superiors and humility, then you get sense control. Say it negatively. Without that, you're not going to have sense control. Maybe a mode of goodness kind of, I'm not going to steal, I'm not going to lie, and I'm not going to cheat, I'm not going to, do bad stuff. So, I'm more in the mode of goodness kind of nice guy kind of thing. But then there's tests. That circumstances may break that situation. So you have sense control that comes from these two, the earlier things. Humility that arises from service to superiors. Then sense control. That's the branches of the tree. And then this is now back to Chanakya Pandit. Then there's the fruit. And the fruit is, you get real spiritual realization. Vijnana. There's theoretical, and then there's realization, vijnana. And then from that vijnana becomes to know who you are, and then to know who is the Supreme. And so what's the starting point? The starting point is serve superiors. And then this is Chanakya Pandit, then all benefits of life will come to you. All benefits of life. There's nice Sanskrit phrases that go with that. All success. Now I'm supposed to end at 10 minutes to the hour, and according to my watch, I have 15 minutes to go. So I'm going to tell another story, and then we'll see if there's some discussion. On the theme of respect, it's another Mahabharata story Another Mahabharata story is from Karna Parva section of Mahabharata. Karna was not allowed to become a disciple of Dronacharya because of his birth. So he was miffed because he thought, I'm the best, but he won't even become my teacher. So what did Drona do? Not Drona. Karna. Karna went to Parshuram. And he lied to Parshuram. He said, I'm a Brahmana. Because, Parshuram is from his father was killed by Brahmanas who wanted to steal the Kamadhenu. So he had it in for the Brahmanas, for the Kshatriyas. So he said, I'm a Brahmana. So he trained him. And then later he found out he lied. And when he found out that he lied, Parshuram cursed him. He said, now you've learned this and that and the other thing, and you're good. But all of that, which you know, will escape you when you most need it. I curse you. So that's what happened to Karna. But he was a very proud, super proud person. So proud that Bhishma said, when Bhishma, grandfather Bhishma, Mrs. Mahabharata, grandfather Bhishma was approached by Dronacharya, by Duryodhana. Bhishma was approached by Duryodhana. We want you as the commander-in-chief, because he's like, big hero. And Bhishma was able to fend off Parshuram. His reputation was like, nobody's better than you. Can you be our commander-in-chief? And because Bhishma knew all the diabolical things that Duryodhana was up to, but he had made this promise to his father, I won't become king, but whoever is the king, I'll support the king. And he kept his word. So he became commander-in-chief. But he had two conditions. One, I won't fight on the same side as Karna. And there's a reason. There's two good reasons. One of the good reasons was he knew both from Krishna, Bhishma knew from Narada and from Krishna that Karna was the first son of Kunti. So he didn't want to see a fratricidal war where Karna, who was, puffed up, personified, as was Duryodhana, very, very proud. He didn't want to have a war where the elder brother would be fighting the younger brothers. The cousins fought the cousins, but he didn't want the brothers fighting the brothers. So he said, I won't fight on the same side. I'll be commander-in-chief, but not him. He's not in the battlefield. And another was because he was so proud. There's details about that. So when Bhishma was killed on the 13th day of the battle, left some number of days remaining for the battle. And guess who became the commander-in-chief? Karna. And there's a little document that I sent to Prem Kishore, and he'll probably circulate it to any of you that want a copy. You can bother him and he'll send you a copy. Or I don't know if you have a WhatsApp group or something like that. But the whole section from Mahabharata of what happened. Karna was very skilled. Parshuram trained him. Very skilled. And at a certain point in time, the Pandavas were ruining the army of the Kauravas. So Duryodhana came to Karna and said, do something. You're skilled. He said, okay. So he got a barg of a weapon and killed thousands of Pandavas. And he was on a roll, and the Pandavas were nervous because Karna's so good. And Karna turned and tried to attack Arjuna specifically. The battle between the two. And Arjuna had the skill to pierce an arrow through the reins of his horses. So his chariot went off in a far out direction because he couldn't control the horses. Arjuna was such an archer. And then Karna came back and started attacking Yudhisthira and laid him low. He didn't kill him, but he was very seriously wounded and retreated from the battlefield just to take care of his wounds. When Arjuna found out, he said, I'm going to kill Karna. That's it. And Krishna said, wait a minute. Yudhisthira was taken off the battlefield because he was wounded. Let's first go see Yudhisthira. Got it? So there's, tension going on. It's war. So Krishna went together with Arjuna to the tent where Yudhisthira was. And Yudhisthira, when he saw Arjuna, he lit up, thinking, you've killed Karna. Fantastic. And Arjuna said, no, I didn't kill Karna. I came here because I heard you were in great difficulty. And for some reason or another, completely out of character for Yudhisthira, he started speaking very badly to Arjuna. What kind of hero are you? You've got this powerful Gandiva bow, and you can't deal with Karna, and bad stuff and bad stuff and bad stuff. Nasty. Not completely out of character for very mild Yudhisthira. And Arjuna took exception. Arjuna said, I've taken a vow that anybody says to give up my Gandiva bow, I'll kill them. I'm going to kill you. And so Krishna intervened. Pretty tense. Krishna said many things. What included those many things, this little document says the many things that he said. But, okay, you took a vow, but you can't kill your brother. That's not okay. So here's what you can do. You can insult your brother. Because for a noble person like your brother, harsh words are worse than death. Now, you already spoke harshly to him, and you know how you felt. You speak some harsh words to him, and your vow will be upheld. So Arjuna did what Krishna said. And he said many harsh things. This whole battle is because of you. Your addiction to gambling, and you gambled away our kingdom, you gambled away our wife, and we're in this big mess because of you. You're the problem. And he felt really badly after he did all that. And Yudhisthira, wounded and everything, got up and left. He was more wounded by Arjuna's words. His brother, his dear brother. Krishna went and caught up with Yudhisthira and said, he said because I told him to say it. Because he had already taken a vow, and he gave him the explanation. He said, oh, okay. And then Arjuna, having said those bad words to Yudhisthira, was going to kill himself. And Krishna said, don't do that. Honor yourself. So Arjuna praised himself and then thought, what am I doing? Krishna corrected both of them. And this is how the story ends. And it's 5 minutes till the class ends. The bell's going to ring in 5 minutes. So, words, sense control, one of those senses is speech. We know what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, austerity of speech. So we as practicing devotees should understand, be very careful how you speak, because it can wound people more than arrows or bullets or something that's deadly. It can stay with them for their life and they're hurt. It happens. Does it happen? It happens. The closer someone is to you, the more there can be a hurt. It's not like just keep people away. That's alienation. That's another thing that Kapila Dev speaks about. Feeling myself separate, and therefore I'm in a little bubble and nothing gets to me. And that's lonely. And it's hurtful to yourself and to others. It's not a solution. I'm going to end. What's the solution? Devotion to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and respect other living entities. Pretty simple. And respect living entities because super souls within their heart. They are spirit soul. Respect them because they're super soul. Because they're soul. And super soul is within their heart. And even more so, respect. Like you worship the deity. And we're not there yet. Most of us aren't there yet. So what do? We practice. And practice including doing deity worship, the beginning stages of bhakti, with the purpose not just everything goes to the deity and the heck with everybody else and everything else. Respect everything else because it comes from the source, the Supreme, who's the source of everything. And he's in the heart of everyone. Practice deity worship in such a way that's right in one of the verses that we read from Kapila's teachings on explanation of devotional service. It's really nice. Would you like to terminate material existence and enter into the spiritual atmosphere? Yes. And that's the method. It's right there in the Bhagavatam. Those of you that don't have Bhagavatam, please get Srimad Bhagavatam. And those that do have it, I invite you, read Canto 3, Chapter 29, those middle verses of that Chapter 29. And it explains what pure devotional service is, what the obstacle is, and how to overcome the obstacle. It's really nice. And one can become filled with happiness instead of all those other negative things that happen in life, the negative emotions that come and don't seem to go away. They may diminish a little bit and they come back again. That's material life. Okay. It's time to end. So, what happens next? Who's our MC for this evening? Do we have a master of ceremonies? Yes. Okay. Okay, well, we have 3 minutes for questions. Okay. Anybody has a burning question you'd like to ask? I see one hand back there. How loud are you? Do you need a microphone?
So, Maharaj, thank you very much for coming over and giving us your association. Sorry, I've been dealing with a lot of personal issues, so I couldn't really pay attention, but a few things you said in the afternoon really made a huge impact on me.
Can you speak slower, a little slower?
Yeah. You mentioned about Yudhishthira getting Dronacharya's blessings before the war.
Yes.
And that was really life-changing for me.
You liked it, huh?
Because I was very bothered about this whole Ashwatthama Kunjaraha for almost 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
Really?
So you're worth more than your weight in gold. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm just narrating what was in the Mahabharata. For those of you who didn't catch what he said because he spoke real fast, right after Krishna finished speaking Bhagavad Gita, the war is ready to begin. Both sides. No hesitation, ready to go. And they're waiting for Yudhishthira to give the signal. And no signal. Instead, Yudhishthira took off his helmet and went straight towards the core of an army side. And he went straight to Grandfather Bhishma and fell at his feet. Because offering respect to seniors, to superiors. Bhishma is their superior. He was their grandfather. He raised them when their father was gone. Grandfather Bhishma. And his request, he was asking for a blessing. Offering respect, seek blessings. The blessing was, may we please be victorious. And he said, so be it. And the good thing you did come, because if you didn't come, I would have cursed you that you would lose. But you came instead, because that's your character. So thank you very much. And then with the others, he went. Drona, his uncle, Kripacharya, and they all gave their blessing that he would be victorious. Same offer, fell at their feet and sought blessings that they would be, that the Pandavas would be victorious to the opposing generals. Who does that? Yudhishthira, a person that understands the culture of respect. And blessings came. Okay. There's someone else. One more.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the wonderful class, Maharaj. Maharaj, I wanted to know that you just mentioned about a very wonderful event wherein, how should we conduct ourselves and not commit Vaishnava Aparadh by our words.
Thank you.
I was wondering if in case you can also please help us to understand if in case by mistake we might have already done some Vaishnava Aparadh because of our words unknowingly, then how should we counteract that?
Okay. Thank you for the question. The unknowing is a little more tricky, because if it's knowing, you can go to the person and ask forgiveness from the person for your mistake. It was a mistake. And they can say yes or no or maybe. They can say what they want to say. But Prabhupada was asked the question you're asking. And Prabhupada said, his answer, therefore we have this prayer. Vanchakalpatrubhyascha kripasindubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo noha. So we not just recite it, but feel it, that we're offering our obeisances to all the Vaishnavas, because they're worthy of our obeisances. And the blessing is, please forgive me for my unintentional, not even knowing I did it, mistake. It happens. It happens. There's all kinds of things that happen. That's one of them. So that's the answer to your question. Prabhupada's answer. Okay. I think we're going to end. Yes? Shall we end? You take this one?
Let us thank Maharaj. Rompad Swami Maharaj ki jai, Prabhupada ki jai. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol.